Now, I could remember when I could spring out of this. Isn't she pretty? You'd never think that this is 50 years old, would you? Hi and welcome to the show. Now, if it's in the news, on your mind, close to your heart, getting up your nose or on your chest, it's in the court of public opinion. Thank you so much for joining us, and we have an hour for the Court of Public Opinion. And we have some new supporters as well. Hair Artistique from King William Road, and we also have Tailors of Distinction from Unley Road. Welcome to you and all our sponsors. Now, of all the stories around this week, I think the most important one to get our teeth into is this Royal Commission into the abuse of our children. Now, I don't know what your expectation is, what will come out of it. Is it going to be a lawyer's picnic? How long will it go? How much money will it cost? And what will come out at the end? You know, they had one in Ireland. Justice Sean Ryan was the judge in charge of that inquiry. It went for, I think it was 10 years. And I don't know whether someone went to jail or people were compensated or the problem was solved. I think they all got around the table and said, I'm sorry. Well, we know that, but is that going to really fix the problem? Our expectation is that we should be able to send our kids to camp, to school, to church, and that they will be safe. And clearly we can't do that. I don't know if a lawyer's picnic called a Royal Commission, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of having a Royal Commission. I think it's a good idea, but I don't know what will come out of it and whether we'll get the value that we expect to get out of it. And I honestly don't think we're going to solve the problem. But it's all about people who run schools, churches, institutions. They all figure that they should be above reproach. We need in the community something that's above reproach, something to look up to, something to trust in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can't. History has proven that we can't trust them. You know, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was playing cards one night with a group of friends, and the argument came up about people who were above reproach. This was in London, you know, the author of Sherlock Holmes. And his argument, Sir Arthur's argument, was there is no one above reproach. Now, around the table they said, oh yes, there are dozens of respectable people who are absolutely above reproach. So Sir Arthur said, okay, I'll prove it to you. You write down the names of 12 of the most respectable men in London, and I'll show you. So the next morning he sent them all a telegram. You remember a telegram, don't you? Sort of. Well, the telegram simply said, fly at once. All is discovered. And you know, next morning, not one of those upright, respectable men of London of the day was in the country. They'd all gone. Point proven. No, I think the sad truth is that we must not trust anyone. No one is above reproach. We cannot trust people with our children. History has proven that. We're going to take that topic out onto the streets and see what you think about it. You'll meet the jury, you'll meet a whole lot of special guests. Stay with us and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. And thank you for joining us on this, which is our new elongated 1-hour program of the Court of Public Opinion. Special guests today, we have Alexander Downer. You remember Baz and Pilko, don't you? Enormously successful radio act. If you remember them, you'd remember Peter Plus. Well, Peter Plus has written the real story about Baz and Pilko. Barry Ian will join us, and it's warts and all, I can promise you that. And the Jersey Boys, great act. But right now, Craig James, who's the chief economist with ComSec, in town for, oh, I don't know, briefings and conferences and all the rest. So I grabbed the opportunity to talk to you. There's nothing probably more important than the economy. We do a lot of talking about it, but most of us know nothing about it, don't really understand it. Where do you think we're heading in the new year?
Well, I'm a person who sees the glass as half full rather than half empty. And I think in terms of the new year, we're actually going to see some better times. It gets down to confidence levels. People just don't have the confidence. I think if we had confidence, certainly in our economy in terms of the outlook, that we'd be doing a lot more. But China's picking up. The United States economy is looking better, driven by the housing sector. Here in Australia, I don't think we've got too much to complain about. And I think if people, did have confidence, took the big picture view and looked at the fact that Australia's in pretty reasonable shape, then we'd go out there and be doing things rather than sitting on our hands.
Well, there's no minister for confidence, is there? But as you say, I mean, the employment is pretty okay, inflation is pretty okay, the dollar is pretty okay. What is there about this lack of confidence? Why are we worried?
Well, I think for Australians, they seem to make a national sport, set out of worrying. And it's not about, so what's happening here in Australia, because as you say, you look at unemployment and inflation. We haven't had a recession here in Australia for 21 years. That's just remarkable. But it's constantly looking offshore. I think part of the problem is because we're a nation of migrants. So we've got the Greeks, the Italians, the Brits looking back at their homeland and saying, I'm worried about what's going on over there. We're worried about what's happening in America with things like the fiscal cliff. We're worried about what's happening in China because they've slowed down and now hopefully they're starting to pick up. So the worries are more about what's happening offshore rather than what's happening onshore.
This fiscal cliff thing, I can sort of understand Greece and Portugal and Spain and Italy, they're all sort of kind of living beyond their means and no one's paying his taxes. But this fiscal cliff in the United States, why do they allow it to go on one more day of uncertainty when they can get together on both sides of the aisle, as they say, and fix it?
Well, unfortunately, we're dealing with politicians, and politicians can do these sorts of things. So they're fixated on their own particular area. But Republicans, are fixated on taxation. Democrats are fixated on spending. They've got their own particular agendas, and in the past, they haven't wanted to negotiate. Hopefully now, after the election's out of the road, we've got some positive soundings from everyone. Everyone's saying that they want to do business, they want to sit down and nut it out. I don't know why they just don't nut it out now, rather than waiting until later in December, getting close to January, when effectively taxes go up, spending gets cut, and the potential for the US to go into recession if those sorts of things happen.
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine that they just plunged the entire country into recession because they were intransigent or calling each other's bluff or whatever they plan on doing. Now, I remember one of the things that you said at one of the briefings you had was the old world doesn't drive the world economy anymore. Is that good or bad?
Well, it's different. I think it's different, and people have got to get their heads around change. There's so much change happening at the moment. For countless decades, we've had the United States or the United Kingdom or Europe running the show.
Yep.
Well, that's no longer the case. Now it's the emerging world. It's China, India, Asia. We're at that point in human history where the so-called advanced nations are in decline, and we've got the emerging developing nations with a bigger share of the global economy. So this is a major change, and people have got to get their heads around that.
So China looks good. It still looks good, doesn't it?
1.3 billion people. Hard to get our heads around that too. Yeah. And they're going down the path of wanting a higher standard of living, and that is very, very good news for Australia. Not just for the mining sector, but it's for agriculture, for wine, for education, for financial services. So many opportunities that we've got here in Australia because of the expansion in China, and not just China as well. The Asian middle classes are rising, and they're wanting to come to Australia. They're wanting the things that we produce.
Now, what can you tell us about Adelaide and heading into the new year? What are the things that are going to be good? Real estate, shares. What do you have any good news for us?
Well, in terms of Adelaide, I think the good news is that the government is saying, look, we just can't sit on our laurels, we have to do things. And the government is investing in terms of infrastructure. So whether it's the new hospital, whether it's Adelaide Oval, they're doing things. There's cranes on the horizon. That should give people confidence. In terms of Adelaide housing, the most affordable housing in the nation. And that's a positive. The other thing that the government needs to be doing, though, is getting more people coming into South Australia, because you can have the most affordable, sort of housing in the nation, but you've got to have jobs at the start off. And I think the other positives, the agriculture sector, looking great at the moment. So farmers are going to have some money over the next couple of months, and some of the rural and regional towns are going to see a bit of a boost out of that. They may see a bit of a boost in terms of the housing markets too, if the farmers are wanting to spend money. Wine sector, China's buying our wine now, so there's a new market. So there are reasons for optimism.
And Roxby Downs has got to go into that expansion phase sooner or later. They haven't gone, BHP Billiton haven't gone this far without knowing that they will eventually go all the way.
Well, there's huge resource, and I think BHP Billiton just wants a little bit more time to be able to work out getting costs down and looking at prices. They want a sustainable, sort of a production facility there, and I think it will go ahead eventually. It's just getting the timing right. So much more going into technology with mining in Western Australia. Rio Tinto's manning a lot of their mines from Perth, or running a lot of their mines from Perth. So you've got driverless trucks running around, sort of up there in the Pilbara, picking up, sort of the iron ore, dropping them, sort of the ferry wharf or the shipping wharf, and really no individuals involved there. I think the same cost reductions we're going to see in, sort of Olympic Dam, and sort of and that being pushed ahead.
Craig, thanks for joining us, and thank you for coming by while you're in Adelaide. I hope to see you again.
Not a problem at all.
Craig James, he is the Chief Economist with ComSec. This is the Court of Public Opinion.
It's a home theatre.
It's an office.
It's a salon.
It's a bar.
It's a garage.
Garage Mahal can transform your shed, carport, garage or undercroft into your favourite room in the house. You'll be surprised with what we can do with that disorganised and messy space. Regardless of your reasons, your lifestyle or hobby, we can create whatever you can imagine. So call Garage Mahal today on 1300 839 353.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammellauctions.com.au.
Just a little nostalgia. This was the day back in 1981 when Sunday, remember the Sunday program, Channel 9? That began on the 9 network this day in 1981. And The Sullivans started on Australian television, 1976. Does that make you feel old? 1976. Christine Esau, welcome to the jury.
Hello, Jeremy.
Julia O'Neill.
Hi, Jeremy.
Coralie Cheney.
Hi, Jeremy.
Caitlin went out onto the streets of our beautiful city to ask 3 very important questions. The first one, and I think it's the big story of the week, and that is, should we have, must we have, a royal commission into these people who, from sometimes very influential positions, abuse our trust and our children?
Yes.
Why is it so important?
From personal experience, I would suggest that it would be good.
Do you think it will work?
If it doesn't run for perhaps longer than the 2 years that they're suggesting, yes.
Yes.
Do you think it will work?
Only if it's done properly.
Yes.
Do you think it will work?
Depends on the terms of reference.
And why do you think it's an important thing to have?
I think that it's got to be eliminated, and that's probably the only way it's ever going to be done.
Yep,
Yeah. Do you think that it will work?
I hope so.
And why do you feel it's important to implement something like this?
Safety of our future. Yes.
And do you think it will work?
Well, if they put the right measures in place, then I suppose so.
Fairly predictable, but it's the outcome, not the process. It's the outcome that we are going to have to wait maybe years and years and years and years. And if it ain't going to be a lawyer's picnic, I don't know what it will be. The Royal Commission on Facebook, Andrew Andrews says, yes, churches are behind the issue, so the government should do it. David Humphreys, I'm glad to hear all of the Royal Commission victims may feel some sort of justice is being done and closure perhaps for their horrible experiences. And Julian Rutt, the Royal Commission needs to pull, no punches, it's long overdue. It's, Christine, just so sad that we have to have this.
Jeremy, I think my concern is that Royal Commissions traditionally look to blame, and that's looking back, and yes, we should say sorry, but I wonder how much more important it is to find a solution for the future. That's what I really think we should be looking at. And while I'd love to look back and get, as in Ireland it took 10 years because suddenly everybody wanted to say it happened to me. It's dreadful, it shouldn't have happened, but it's more important that we find a solution for the future. So I'd rather spend that money trying to find ways to prevent this ongoing problem.
Julia?
Yes, I think that we should have a Royal Commission. I think that it's important that we put a stop to this, and it's not only within the church, it's within other institutions as well.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I know it's going to cost a lot of money, however there's a lot of people out there, a lot of victims that have committed suicide over this, and that you can't put a price on a human being, can you? So at the end of the day, it's going to cost us money, but we've got to stop this. This cannot keep going on like it has been for centuries and centuries, and hopefully this does help. And they need to be exposed as well.
Coralie?
I agree with Christine. I can't see the point as much in bringing up the past. As sad and as terrible a situation it is, and I feel terribly sorry for all those victims, it's probably not going to help them time and money spent on the Commission as opposed to getting things into place. It's like fire prevention rather than putting out bushfires. Getting things into place that across the board children can be protected. It might be at home. It mightn't be in a community group or a church group. It might be from home. So we need to put that education in place that they learn how to stop it.
I remember my mother, her philosophy was, you can't trust anyone with your children.
She's right.
Absolutely right, unfortunately.
She's right.
And I wonder why people persist in calling these people pedophiles. I mean, that's somebody who likes feet. Pediatrician, it's the paedophile is the word. But anyway, I don't want to be pedantic. All right. Okay. Now, the other question Caitlin asked was about fast food. The idea being that, here are our kids, captive audience, and they are getting more and more overweight as the years go by. They're sitting there watching television as a captive audience, being fed a diet of fast food. Should we ban fast food advertising on kids' television?
It's a positive thing because, of course, kids are going to want takeaway food, aren't they? And I think it's stupid. To be honest, yeah, stupid.
The junk food, yes. Junk food, yes.
Yes? Could you just expand on that, why you think that we should ban it?
Yeah, because the children become obese. Then most of the schools I saw in the children, they're chubby.
Yes,
Yes.
why do you think that?
If they don't see it, they don't want it. If they don't want it, they can't hassle you for it. So they just cut it out completely, and they can't, whinge for it. That's the only way I can put it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I had 3 in 3 years, so yeah.
So you know all about it?
All about it, yeah. Those McDonald's ads at 7 o'clock, no way. They're screaming. They've had their tea. See, McDonald's ad, they don't want their tea, they want nuggets, so ban it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Definitely.
And why do you think that?
Because the nation's getting fatter and fatter, and we really need to give them healthy food, so yeah.
I think it should, because I'm a young mother and I definitely don't want my kid getting the bad idea.
Yeah, and this is what our contributors on Facebook say. Andrew says, absolutely, it's legal child exploitation. It creates an additional complication for parents to deny the stuff when the TV says it's okay. And Julian, definitely ban junk food advertising to children. It's nothing but exploitation via the nag factor. Yes. Coralie. Do you remember the nag factor?
I remember the nag factor very well, but no, I disagree. I don't think it's going to make any difference. I think the education has to come from home. It has to come from the parents right from the start as to how they shop, and what, the choices they make in the supermarket, through to their ability to understand good nutrition, to be able to cook. And they're not going to be nagged as much if they've had a good feed at home, a good meal. And there's a whole, everything involved with communication over the mealtime, etiquette, all that has been lost. It's not just the fast food component of nutrition, they need to sit down to tables, they need to understand that's the time where you download with the family about your day. So it's a lot more involved, but I don't think it's going to stop. Banning it's not going to stop it.
Julia?
Yeah, I think that don't ban it because you can't stop it. And when you say no to a kid, what does he want to do? He wants to go out and do the opposite. So it's there, it's, you know, McDonald's, they're all out there. There's cereal that's been advertised as well. I think it's really the education from the parents, like Coralie says, that's really important. And also it's getting their little butts out and playing tennis and whatever, running around the yard and getting them to exercise a bit more
the
rather than
exercise
stopping the food.
Is terribly important and vastly underestimated. Christine?
Do you know, you're speaking with 7 children here. That is 3 mothers, 7 children. And there's not an obese one among them.
No.
And I think that's because we've educated our children. When I was a child, treats happened. We always had treats, and that was something to look forward to. And I think that's what some of the junk food is all about. You know, going out at the end of term and having a Hungry Jack's was a real treat, but we recognised it as a treat.
Yes,
So again, it does come back to what's happening in homes now, because it didn't happen when we raised our children.
Yeah.
And I look at my 24-year-old, and she still recognises that junk food is great tasting, but it has a 0 factor in terms of nutrition.
Yeah.
She learnt that at 3.
Well, the quick fix, of course, and we all want the quick fix. The quick fix is ban it.
No.
The sensible fix is parents, take control of the television set, take control of the kids, take control of your house.
I don't even believe...
Not easy.
I wouldn't even take control of the TV set. I'd much rather sit there and say something like, you know, you can't eat that every night.
Now, Jury, Miles Kemp did a story in the Advertiser which surprised me. I knew neighbourhood disputes were a problem, but he pointed out in his front page story that it is the #1 source of complaint and aggravation and legal action in the entire community. The #1 problem, getting on with your neighbours. This is what the people in Rundle Mall had to say about it.
I think it is a good idea. I know I've experienced problems like that in the past myself, and having somebody that can be a sort of an arbitrator for that kind of thing is really important. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Not necessarily need, but it could be helpful to people who have their ideas of a right to themselves. Thank you.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and why do you think that?
Neighbourhood disputes and ombudsman, just to resolve the issues in a fair manner, fair and easy manner.
Absolutely.
And why do you think that?
Because I've had problems with previous neighbours before, and it could have been very handy at the time, for sure. Rather than having police called and wasting their time, something like that would be really worthwhile, I would think.
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, you need someone to step in and arbitrate disputes, otherwise it gets ugly and heated.
Yeah, if you have a good neighbour here and here and here and here, you're in heaven. But if you have a bad one, my God. What do you think, Coralie?
Well, it's really sad that people can't get on, but you know, I understand that sometimes that happens. Maybe it's up to the council to offer a mediation kind of opportunity for people to be able to sit down and talk about
Well,
things,
the idea is to have an
resolution.
ombudsman maybe who can just take it out of that whole legal thing and have the authority to settle the dispute, you know, with the wisdom of Solomon kind of thing. You know?
You know, I got new neighbours last weekend, and they only arrived last week, knocked on my door furiously on Saturday morning and said, you better come in for a drink. We got married today. And so I met my neighbours over several glasses of Moët champagne. I doubt we'll ever have a neighbourhood dispute.
Well, I wish you well. Julia?
Oh, as long as houses are being built on top of one another, it's going to go on. But I really think that we need like a Judge Judy to you know, control these situations with the neighbours and put a stop to it, rather than sort of bring in lawyers and...
Yeah. The crazy thing is that we are all living closer and closer together, yet we are somehow strangely isolated. And we maybe just don't like each other well enough.
You know, I've got on with my neighbours always. We have chats over the fence. We look after each other's kids, look after each other's dogs. It is about your attitude.
Jury, thank you. You're dismissed.
Thank you,
See you next
Jeremy.
week. This is the Court of Public Opinion. Is trust important to you? When building life's biggest investment, well, look no further than Rossdale Homes, a South Australian family-owned company whose mantra is "Because trust is a must," has been building quality homes for people like you and me for over 30 years. Rossdale Homes guarantees an absolute fixed price. No hidden extra charges. Choose off the plan or work with their building consultants to design your own. Or visit their website, Rossdale Homes, because trust is a must.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
I really would like to welcome Scammels, one of our sponsors to the show. As I've told you, this whole collection of stuff has been thrown away by somebody at least 3 times. And recycled. No, not thrown away, recycled. And this is something that fits in just perfectly with my next guests. I got this at auction, and I don't know if you're old enough to remember Things Go Better with Coke. You know, things go better with Coke. And on this, there are the Shirelles, remember them? Jan and Dean, Roy Orbison, Glenn Yarborough, and most interestingly, this cost $8, I must tell you. An old 45. I've got to find some way of playing it. But also on this, the Four Seasons. This is genuine 1962, I guess it would be, something like that. And that leads me into introducing you to the Jersey Boys. Now, I searched high and low to get this microphone because it's in character with all that you do so wonderfully in that sellout show. Now, I might just lean over and give it to you.
Oh, pleasure.
All right. That's a prop for you.
Fantastic.
Now, introduce yourselves, because I just know you as the Four Seasons.
Yes, well, I'm Glaston Toft, and I play Nick Massey, one of the original Four Seasons of Jersey Boys.
My name's Anthony Harkin, and I play Tommy DeVito.
I'm Jeff Madden, and I play Frankie Valli.
You're all geniuses.
And I'm Jack Lanegan, and I play Bob Gaudio.
Yeah, Bob Cordeaux. I mean, from my early days as a kid in growing up in radio, Bob Crew and Bob Gaudio were names that were so familiar. And you bring them to life, and you bring that whole era so wonderfully to life. When I listened to it, and the opening show was fantastic. I mean, I've never seen a standing ovation like that. And they didn't want to let you go. and that audience, you've got to see this if you haven't seen it, the Jersey Boys at the Festival Theatre. It was a complete cross-section. You know, I had my youngest son, 12 years old. I looked around and completely, your appeal is ageless.
Yeah, I think that's something about, you know, a testament to, you know, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons themselves. You know, their music really is timeless, you know, and appeals to, you know, every generation, really.
Mm-hmm. And it's been, you know, still to this day, I think last year Lauryn Hill did a cover of Can't Take My Eyes Off You. You know, this music is still being covered and you know, made fresh to this day. And, you know, you think about they started back in the 60s. That's an extraordinary amount of time for a group of artists to have their music constantly being played and reimagined.
I'd like to see the stuff that is being produced today have that kind of longevity.
Exactly.
You know, it's just not going to do it. Listening to you, I thought you were Americans. I thought you had been imported at great expense from the United States, because how would you possibly find a group of people who sounded so like the Four Seasons and they happen to be Australian? But you are Australian, or you're Canadian?
I'm Canadian, yeah. I'm the lone foreigner. But we did the show in Toronto for a couple of years as well, and people would say the same thing. Are you guys from the States? Are you from New Jersey? I think the producers and Frankie and Bob themselves, who are greatly involved in the show, they care so much about it being authentic that they have hired the best vocal coaches, the best dialect coaches, and they've trained everybody so well so that we can come across as being the real thing.
But how do you get the sound? Because I couldn't pick the sound, and you do all those famous songs.
Yeah, I think it's just been rehearsed. It's every detail has been taken care of by by the musical directors, and we rehearse it all the time, and it's just drilled.
So you
and,
don't go into automatic or autopilot and just sail through it.
No, you certainly try not to.
Yeah.
I mean, every night, you know, that's why it's live theatre. You want to be having a fresh experience every time you step out on stage. I think that's certainly what we aim for.
We're a team. I mean, there's what is there, 16 cast members. There's a 10-piece band. There's a massive amount of crew that are helping us sound and look great every night. So, yeah.
It's a great franchise because clearly there are how many shows around the world? How many?
About 7.
There's about 7, yeah.
7 shows.
Yeah. I mean, it's just brought up its 7th year running on Broadway.
That's right. Yeah,
just yesterday, I think, or something. Yeah. Then there's the West End. There's a couple of national tours, Vegas.
Yeah.
There's one in Singapore.
Well, I think you're absolutely amazing and fantastic. How they could find a group of people like you who could sing so perfectly the songs of the Four Seasons and Frankie Valli. And you are so good as Frankie Valli. I mean, you're so good. But how would you find one group, let alone, how would you find 7?
Yeah, I guess there's enough talented people out there. You know, it's very well written, and I think that, you know, they when they have auditions for guys that play the Four Seasons, they really put them through their paces. They really make sure that you can sing the kind of tight harmonies, and with Frankie's, they have this, you know, training ground that they actually call Frankie Camp, where they kind of, you know, prep you as if you were an athlete getting ready to run a marathon or something. You know, they work your way up so that you can consistently do the job night after
Were
night.
you all singers or all actors or what?
Both.
Yeah, a bit of both, I guess. I guess we're all kind of have to be jack of a few trades in this business.
Yes.
I'd certainly consider myself an actor who sings, I guess, but everyone comes at it from different angles, I think.
Yeah. And what was it like? What was the Adelaide audience like? Because I've never seen an audience go wild like that over anything. I've seen a few shows, and I've never seen a reaction as positive to you guys as that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, the show kind of it always has that, you know. It always gets people excited about the show, you know. It's just it's a well-written, you know, true story, you know, with amazing music in it. And it just really gets people excited. And I don't think Adelaide is any exception to that at all, you know. It's the audience was incredible, but it is everywhere we go, really. Yeah, and that's the success of the show, you know. That's why we've been going for over 3 years now in Australia,
So you could have it for superannuation. I mean, you could be going out there on walking frames 25 years, 30 years from now, and it could still probably work.
I don't know if we'd be able to do the choreography anymore.
Yes, no, that's another whole story. I just like that era, that bumpa-da-bum, ba-dang, dang, dang, ba-ding-a-dong, ding, and all of that harmony stuff.
Well, that's you know, the music of the Four Seasons goes through so many generations. You know, they first had their first hits back in the 60s. If that LP was you know, 62, I think. You know, they first came to fame with Sherry and Big Girls Don't Cry and all that
but they
back in the 60s. But
still
then
had big hits in the 70s, mid-70s.
Yeah, and then 70s and the disco era. You know, that was, you know, released again in the 80s. You know,
Yes, I know. But, you know, to the baby boomers, of whom I am one, the music is wonderful because you can link bits and pieces of your life. I mean, the first girl I ever really fell in love with, I was listening to the song, probably a 45 like that, of Oh What a Night. I wish I had $1 for everyone who fell in love to that song.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, what a night. Well, beautiful.
It's one of the powers of the show, I think, is that it does transport the people, the audience members. It just, that music does. It seems to take them back to when they were younger, and it gives them a lot of energy, and it just makes them leaving the theatre with such a smile on their face.
I didn't get it at auction, but I did get, while I was in radio, a very early copy of, you know how they put out the singles as samplers to radio people. And they have a version of Oh What a Night, which is a dance version, which goes for 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Yeah. There's some great stuff that they actually left out of the show. You know, the Four Seasons went through like a concept album phase, you know, and did some, you know, wild experimental things, as all the bands, you know, did back in the in the 70s, I guess, and in the 60s.
Yeah.
That they kind of leave out of the show because,
Yeah.
well, commercially it wasn't successful at all. You know, they kept. That's the thing, I guess, about the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
They kept putting stuff out there, and eventually you put enough out there, and you get success.
You've got to keep trying.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're an inspiration, and I loved the program, and it's on for about another 6 weeks, I guess.
That's correct.
Yeah, until mid-December, I think we're here.
So if it's not booked out, just make sure you go and see it, the Jersey Boys, because it really is fantastic. And this whole garage here dedicated more or less to the 60s. I could think of no finer group of people to have in the show than you guys, and thank you for sparing the time to come in.
Thank you very much.
The Four Seasons, or the Jersey Boys.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
It's a home theatre.
It's an office.
It's a salon.
It's a bar.
It's a garage?
Garage Mahal can transform your shed, carport, garage or undercroft into your favourite room in the house. You'll be surprised with what we can do with that disorganised, messy space. Regardless of your reasons, your lifestyle or hobby, we can create whatever you can imagine. So call Garage Mahal today on 1300 839 353.
You remember last week I got emotionally involved in that story that Four Corners ran about the live animal exports, which ended up in Karachi. I mean, I've never seen pure evil as I saw in that program, but I did get emotionally involved and on this program. And then I get a phone call from Michael Pratt with his farmer's hat on, taking me to task. What objection did you have about my comments?
I don't object to your comments. I'm making a stand on behalf of my farming brotherhood. I've bred and grown and exported live wethers, but I agree with you and the rest of the world that what happened in Pakistan was obscene. The sheep first of all left Australian waters and went to Bahrain. They then end up in Pakistan with anthrax, which I thought was a province of cattle.
Well, they said it, didn't mean it was true.
But and I was most pleased that our Prime Minister took it up with her counterpart, and in a letter to the editor, this is what I wish Julia had said, that to her counterpart Raja Ashraf in regard to the disgraceful and inhumane slaughter. And I hope in Julia's style of lecturing by men, she would have added, you could also advise your Muslim brothers, I'm not that happy about them and Australians shooting 14-year-old girls simply for wanting an education, and your same mates who practice genital mutilation on the same girls. And by the way, we are turning off the $80 million foreign aid, and we're going to create a manufacturing industry in Australia where we are going to ship you freezers to value add Australian sheep, and then it can end up in Pakistan, frozen or chilled, and you won't have the inhumane treatment that occurred.
Yeah, well, I think that's you're value adding, and you're doing something which works its way around that terrible.
But you can't
cruelty.
censure Australian farmers on live cattle export, which was corrupted into Indonesia, live sheep. I mean, when they left Australian shores, it was a tragedy what occurred weeks later.
Michael Pratt. Is trust important to you when building life's biggest investment? Well, look no further than Rossdale Homes, a South Australian family-owned company whose mantra is, because trust is a must, has been building quality homes for people like you and me for over 30 years. Rossdale Homes guarantees an absolute fixed price. No hidden extra charges. Choose off the plan or work with their building consultants to design your own. Or visit their website, Rossdale Homes, because trust is a must.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
Well, just because I'm in my teens and I still go
You know, there have been some fantastic success stories in radio and television and live television, because radio is always live. And we've managed to export to various parts of the world, indeed, some wonderful, wonderful talent. But when I cast my mind back over the talent we've had in Adelaide, I don't think there has ever been anyone quite like Baz and Pilko. Now, Baz and Pilko, if you remember Baz and Pilko, you will remember Peter Plus. I'm sure you will. Barry Ian is joining us in the Court of Public Opinion, and I believe, I don't know how you feel about it, but I believe Peter has written the tell-all book about you guys.
Yeah, he came to me about 6 months ago, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on too. Nice to see you. Lovely garage.
Well, great to see you.
I've got a similar
Do
garage.
you think it's eccentric enough?
Nah.
I'm working on it.
Size is good. I think big is good. Big is comfortable too. I like it here. It's better than my garage. 10 times bigger too.
You can come and use it any time you like.
Yeah, he came to me about the idea of writing the book. And I said, well, you know, what are you going to put in it? And he said, I don't know. So I've agreed to be his mentor and help him with stuff. But you've got to remember, plus he's now 50.
I can't believe that.
He's 50. He's no idiot.
He was just a kid.
Well, he was the only one of the three of us to finish year 12. So he's grown to a fairly smart young man, or old man, I suppose now. He drives cabs. That's what he does. But he came with the idea of the book, and I said, well, I'd rather hear it from your point of view than from mine or Pilko's point of view, because we get that outside look at what we did rather than an inside look.
Is it a kind of warts and all book?
Yeah, and some, yeah. Look, it starts in 75. The year before we actually got together, we started in 76, and it goes right through to 97 when we finished. Yep. And it's actually the journey. So it's a story rather than just impressions. It's a story.
It's the extraordinary thing about Baz and Pilko, and I won't bore you with the statistics. I came to Adelaide in 76, and you were just getting started. Yep. And before we knew where we were, this Baz and Pilko phenomenon on 5AD had a rating, well, it basically meant that of every 2 people in Adelaide, one of them always listened to that breakfast show.
And the other one was deaf.
But no one has ever done that in Australia, ever.
Well, things happen. I think we just came along at the right time. I think radio was a bit stiff and formal when we started.
But it was chemistry, wasn't it? Because you two guys didn't get together meaningfully or purposefully.
No.
Was it accidentally?
Yeah, in 75 they used to have the Good Friday appeal for the Children's Hospital. And AD used to broadcast a live fundraiser, you might say. You remember telethons and things like that? We had radiothons. And it was the luck of the draw, a draw out of a hat that Pilko and I were stuck together on that day for 2 hours, as were other announcers. And we just hit it off. We didn't plan anything. We just sat there and talked and laughed.
So somebody at AD must have seen it, because you both worked at AD at the time?
Yeah. I was doing breakfast for a while, then I went through a divorce and then I had a child to look after, so I kind of walked out of breakfast and was doing dishes. And then Pilko came along and he was on the sports panel. Yeah. And we used to see each other now and again, but there was no great rapport. And it wasn't until we actually got on air that we got off and said, geez, that felt good.
So it's chemistry.
Yeah.
But they tell me sort of like Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin and, Rowan and Martin and all of these other very successful acts, that they didn't always get on with each other. There was the public camaraderie and I've heard rumours that you and Tony Pilkington really didn't have a great social life. You didn't get on together?
No, it wasn't a rumour.
I was trying to be diplomatic.
And we never had a stoush. No, actually, we agreed early on, when we thought this was going to really work, we agreed that midday Friday was cut off. And I'll see you Monday.
We weren't going to socialise.
Well, we didn't socialise much before anyway, and we thought if we started to socialise, we would get into each other's pockets and get a sick. Look, 21 years is a long time, longer than most marriages.
Yes.
And we lasted 21 years, and I think it was because of the fact that we lived our lives apart from each other.
Do you ever see each other now?
Really?
Yeah.
I saw Tony at a TUW reunion last year.
Is he nervous that Peter's writing this tell-all book about the days?
Not half as nervous as I
am. What was the best memory? You used to do things, what was it, the Rundle Rumour? And you got some fantastic scoops on all sorts of things.
The best scoop was when Don decided to sack the police commissioner, Harold Salisbury.
Oh yes, I do remember that.
And plus he shoved, it's in the book.
Yeah.
But we dropped that on there. We had a mole in the police force who told us that. And we never reveal our sources.
No.
And when we dropped it at 9 o'clock, two federal policemen came to the studios and demanded to talk to both of us. At 9 o'clock every morning, I went straight to the loo.
Yeah.
It was a habit.
Locked yourself in.
And I would read the interstate newspaper, as it was called. And then when they said, Tony said, well, look, you'll be waiting a long time because Baz is normally a good hour. So they left. And then the CEO of the Advertiser, big bull of the man, Peter Owens, he pulled us in. He said, tell them nothing. Don't tell them your sources. You remember the AJA? And we said, no, you are now. We'll put a bloody microphone in the jail, we have to. You don't tell them nothing. And it all happened from there on, and it just blew up like you wouldn't believe.
Now, is it true that the sponsors would come around at 9 o'clock in the morning with brown paper bags filled with money?
No, that was Bob Francis.
Oh, right.
It was Bob Francis.
I knew it was somebody.
Yeah, it wasn't there. No, that was Bob.
Because we, the poor people round at 10th Street at DN, we were amazingly jealous of you guys.
No, we started those stories. No, we only went for food.
I tell you what, they went off to lunch every day in the Channel 7 helicopter. Now, don't tell me that's a lie.
No, that's not a lie. No, down to Noarlunga, Port Noarlunga.
Yeah. What a life. Do you miss it?
The 80s and even the early 90s were pretty good, but the 80s were fantastic. 70s were pretty good too. But when they had one of these jet helicopters, we used to go down and jump on it and fly down to Noarlunga.
Why wouldn't you guys put it back together again?
What, get up at 4 in the morning?
Well, you've got to do what you've got to do.
I wouldn't mind doing what Hamish and Andy did, just travel the world and do.
But you don't want to go back and do a radio show.
I don't know if we'd have the time or commitment. I don't know if I could do that. My problem now is that I've found in the last 10 years that a lot of stuff I really like to do apart from go to work every day. I love travelling and stuff like that. And I've done a lot of that. I've been around Australia and around the world, and I'm switched on to all that sort of stuff. To actually turn up to work 5 days a week. Maybe once a week I could. Yeah. But I couldn't do 5 days a week, no.
Well, I can't wait for the book to come out. When do you think it'll be out?
Oh, probably early March. It's nearly finished. We're just waiting for the right publisher. There's a queue.
Yeah, what are you going to call it?
Probably 2 Shades of Grey.
I think I'll work on that for a while. Look, it's great to see you.
Nice to see you, Jeremy.
All the very best.
Thank you very much.
Be great. Barry Ian. The Court of Public Opinion.
I'm in my teens and I still go to school.
And while I think of it, happy birthday to City Cross. That opened today, and funnily enough, different year, but the North Adelaide Village opened today. And if it's your birthday or wedding anniversary, I hope it's a really nice day. It is with a great deal of pleasure that I introduce this man sitting beside me. He doesn't need any introduction, really. Alexander Downer, welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Good to see you. I really did expect you to walk up the garage here with Hillary Clinton on your arm. I really did think. But you didn't.
Well, I think she's doing a good job, though, as the Secretary of State. I've been quite impressed with her performance. She's got great poise in the way she handles the job. Yes. So I think she's reflected well on America. You know, they've had a good succession of Secretaries of State over the last few years. When I first became the Foreign Minister, a man called Warren Christopher was the Secretary of State. It's the last white male to have held that position, and he went in about late 1996, I think, early 97, and Madeleine Albright replaced him, and then Colin Powell and Condi Rice, and now we have Hillary, and well, we're waiting for the new one.
What did you think of the American election? Was it a surprise to you, or was it pretty much as you expected?
It was pretty much as I expected. I think it was an unedifying experience. First of all, Obama, who was initially elected on a hope and change slogan, and people really thought, wow, this is going to be something different, went into this election just running a negative campaign against Mitt Romney. But you see, secondly, the Republicans ran a negative campaign against Mitt Romney. People like Gingrich and Santorum and so on, these people trashed Romney before he was even the candidate. It's one thing to run against him for the nomination, but to have run these hugely negative television advertising campaigns against each other, and particularly they targeted Romney because he was the favourite. I mean, it left the guy way behind, and at almost no time from the moment he got the nomination until polling day did he lead in the polls. So it wasn't a surprise.
Do you have any great expectations for the next 4 years, or is he, Barack Obama, a great orator but not much else behind it?
Right, seems to be a bit hesitant when it comes to making decisions. So he has the view of the left, which is the priority is to expand entitlements and to expand welfare, and secondly, it's obviously going to cost money. Well, if you have to borrow a lot of it from the Chinese, that's okay. They've got the money to lend. Now they're heading for what they call the fiscal cliff on the 31st of December. Automatic tax increases and spending cuts are triggered unless Obama can negotiate something between now and then. It will have a huge impact if they don't negotiate anything. That is the Congress, the House of Representatives are dominated by the Republicans and the President. If they don't negotiate a deal, I think America will go back into recession, and I think that'll have a big impact on the global economy. So don't underestimate the seriousness of the moment. So will he be able to negotiate something? I expect they will. They will probably kick the can down the road, as the Americans would like to say, and have another go at it in the middle of next year.
Yeah, the Americans are obviously Hillary Clinton and the Marines in Darwin. They're kind of cozying up to us. Are we putting our relationship with China at any risk, or are they worldly enough to say, well, look, that's fine?
Well, I think the important thing for Australia is to get out of this mindset that a lot of Australians have, that we need to choose between America and China. I was in China the other day. I had lunch with the foreign minister and we had a discussion about this very issue, a very frank discussion about it. And I said to him, look, we've always been mates with the Americans. We went to war with the Americans in 1918 at the Battle of La Hamel, when General Monash led a combined Australian-American force against the Germans, and was one of those battles, by the way, that we won in the Second World War. And ever since then, we have been great allies with the Americans, and we have cultural affinity with them, same language, a lot of similar history and stuff. It don't come between us and the Americans. It's a given in our country, and it's a given in their country. But we want to do business with you. We don't want to contain China. We want to trade with China. We want to invest in China. We're happy for them to invest here. And I think China is, on balance, a pretty unaggressive country.
I see, looking at the latest polls, the Liberal Party is getting knocked around, particularly the leadership. What would your advice to Tony Abbott be at this point?
Well, it's contrary to the advice that the media give. I think if I were to be critical of Tony Abbott, it's when the Labor Party launched this huge onslaught against him. He thought that he would stand aside from it with dignified silence. And that has been a mistake. Honestly, I think he should have retaliated. If I'd been him, with a loving wife, with daughters, parents, including his mother, still alive, and somebody had stood up and said I was a woman hater, I wouldn't leave the Greek there.
Yeah. It's pretty...
misogynist means a woman hater. That somebody stands up in the Parliament and says, I hate women, you hate women. Well, I wouldn't cop that. I just wouldn't cop that, and I'd say, what does that say about my wife? What does that say about my daughters, that you think I hate women? I hate my wife, she's a woman. How dare you say that? And I would have dissolved the Parliament into chaos over that.
Do you miss it?
And he just sort of took it. And you know, and then, as they love to say nowadays, it went viral.
Yeah.
And I think it's done him huge damage.
Do you watch the news and hear the comments and walk up and down with a glass of wine and really miss not being in all of that fray and toing and froing?
Not at all, no.
You don't miss it at all?
No. I enjoyed it a lot, though, because I like talking and I like debating, and I believe in things. So when people are doing what I don't believe in, it energises me.
Yeah.
But I do other things now, and I've had a fantastic run in politics, and I think it's time, you know, new and younger people came along,
Wouldn't
and
you
I'm
like
young
to be-
enough to keep doing other things.
Well, absolutely, but you know, the speculation is that if you haven't been offered, you will be offered to lead the Liberal Party in the state and become the Premier. Would that not be a good thing?
Well, I mean, I think, well, I'd say a couple of things about it. First of all, I've made the point that my wife is hugely opposed to me getting involved in politics.
Oh, you could talk her
anymore.
arocan
Well, you obviously, you know, obviously don't know her as well as you could, because she can be very charming, but she can be fierce. I think the other thing to say, though, is that clearly South Australia could be doing better. And
yeah, I agree.
think in all sorts of different ways. It's not just about the economy, but it's about things like our education system, which I think has been dominated by the Australian Education Union. I think the unions have called the shots. It's the most socialist system imaginable. And I think we're getting very mediocre results. In fact, I think I'm right in saying South Australia has pretty close to the worst school results of any state in the Commonwealth. So there's a huge job to be done there, and good luck to the state Liberals. I hope that they have the vision to do that job, and they have the energy to do that job, but they need to develop the policies, the ideas that will help them win the election.
It's wonderful to see you. So much to talk about. Maybe we could get you to come back again another day.
Sure, I'm very happy to.
But before you go, we have this great chair, and I think you'd be splendid in it, where for 60 seconds you can change the world, or Adelaide, or South Australia. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Alexander Downer.
Well, I think the single most important problem the world faces is sectarianism. It's divisions between people on the basis of often religion, and within religions, but between different components of those religions, and sectarianism more broadly internationally. The problems of the Middle East can be solved, but only by the breaking down of sectarian differences. The problems of much of the Balkans, of Africa, they have to be broken down eventually. They'll be broken down when sectarianism is broken down. How do you do that? Mainly it's by mixing people more. The more people know about others, the more they know about different beliefs and people who hold different beliefs, the more they'll come to understand each other, and and will tolerate each other. New technology offers a way to do this, and this is a solution to many of the world's most important problems.
What do you think of the Security Council seat that we've got? Is that worth all the money we spent to get that?
It's not going to do us any harm, and it's a prestigious thing for Australia to be on the Security Council. But the truth is, the Security Council is dominated by 5 countries: the United States, Russia, France, China.
And they can all veto.
And they can all veto. So it does, at Britain, I forgot to mention, but it does mean that our role there is not quite as a voyeur, but we're not a key player. You have to accept that.
Great to see you, and thank
Nice
you
to
for your
see
time.
you.
Alexander Downer.
Scammels, South Australia's specialist estate auctioneers. Visit us at 7 Chapel Street, Norwood, or at www.scammelauctions.com.au.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for supporting South Australia. Thank you to our cast and our crew and all our supporters and advertisers. Another hour-long Court of Public Opinion next week, and lots of news segments and lots of interest. Thank you again. Now, to take us out, Peter Clayton, great friend, great musician, who had the temerity to front up to Emmylou Harris this week, right here in Adelaide, and present his latest song, which she took away. Will she record it?
Well, all I can do is hope.
Well, welcome to the show, and I want you to play us out. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself. See you next week. Bye for now.
didn't see what I should have seen. You didn't be what I could have been. Now there's no turning back, but I wish I could. No second chance for you and me. You found love with another man. Now I'm just holding on the best I can. Baby, I was deaf, dumb and blind. I didn't hear you when you said that you loved me. Should have shown you just how much I care. I didn't see, now it's brought me to my knees. Looking back and thinking about the foolish things I've done, lost in the confusion of a love gone wrong. What was I thinking when I turned your love away? Now there's a price that I have to pay. Baby, I was deaf, dumb and blind. Didn't hear you when you said that you loved me. Should have shown you just how much I care. I didn't see, now it's brought me to my knees. Time keeps rolling on. This heartache has no end. Waiting on a phone call or word from a friend. There is no comfort for the sorrow that I've known. Well, I just bide my time alone. Baby, I was deaf, dumb and blind. Didn't hear you when you said that you loved me. Should have shown you just how much I care. I didn't see, now it's brought me to my knees. I didn't see, now it's brought me to my knees.